Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Dear Dhamma friends, and may I have the permission from all the Mahasangha, the members of the community of Mahasangha, to start this Dhamma talk. So in the last Dhamma talk conducted by us, we learned about the loving kindness meditation and the emotion or the mental factor called as loving kindness. We learned what is loving kindness, and we learn how to apply loving kindness in our day-to-day life. And we also learned the loving kindness meditation and the benefits of loving kindness. So today I chose another topic which is important for all of us. That is Buddhist teachings for a flourishing life. How can we apply Buddhist teachings to a life that is flourishing? How can we use Buddhist teachings to make our lives flourish? So what is the meaning of this term flourish? We write it as flourish, right? So flourish means, flourishing means thriving or growing. So let's take a plant. The flourishing of a plant means the rapid and successful growth of a plant. So likewise, the growth, rapid growth and successful growth, and the thriving of a life is called as flourishing. So in brief, a life that is full of well-being can be called as a flourishing life. So what we are going to focus today is how the usage or how to use Buddhist teachings, Lord Buddha's teachings, specifically Theravada Buddhist teachings, for our lives to be successful, for our lives to flourish, for us to have a life that is full of well-being. So before starting to focus on our topic, I have to say that some people see Buddhism as a pessimism, Buddhist teachings as pessimistic teachings. The reason for this opinion, this view, is that Lord Buddha's teachings immensely focus on the suffering part of the life. In fact, Lord Buddha himself had taught that the whole life is suffering, right? In Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the first preaching of Lord Buddha, the first Dhamma talk of Lord Buddha, it is mentioned as Sankittena Panchupadana Khandha Dukkha. In brief, all the five aggregates are suffering. So five aggregates are the things that our life is made of. In brief, the material part of the life and the mind and its mental factors. So all these can be called as and should be called as suffering. So we can clearly see that by Buddha himself has named or labeled whole life or whole existence as suffering. That is true. But what we have to understand is that there are different approaches to the reality. When the Buddha talks about the reality, he uses various types of approaches. So I will discuss today briefly two such approaches. The first approach is the Paramattha Satya approach. The approach which focuses on the ultimate reality. Ultimate reality that is seen the things that exist in the world as they are. And the second approach to see, to discuss or to teach the reality is Arya Satya approach, the Four Noble Truths. So in ultimate truth approach also, Lord Buddha focuses and teaches about the reality of the existence. In Arya Satya approach or in Four Noble Truths also, the Buddha focuses on the reality of the world, but they are completely different two approaches. In Paramattha Satya approach, or when Lord Buddha discusses about ultimate truth, he accepts every type of happiness as happiness. Even unwholesome happiness, let's say when you enjoy your time by listening to music, or you enjoy eating some delicious food, and you feel happiness within yourself. This happiness is also happiness in reality. We cannot reject the characteristic of that mental factor. It is happiness in fact. And sometimes we can feel happiness or experience happiness when we do some bad things. Still it is happiness. And when we do good things, wholesome things, we can experience happiness, and the Lord Buddha does not reject that happiness. It is happiness in fact. So in the Paramattha Satya approach, when the Buddha focuses on Paramattha Satya, on the ultimate truth that we learn in the Abhidhamma, he accepts every reality that we can experience as reality. But when it comes to the Arya Satya approach, or the doctrine of Four Noble Truths, every mundane experience that we experience in our day-to-day life, no matter it is material or mental, every mundane thing is categorized under suffering. We have Dukkha Arya Satya, Dukkha Samudaya Arya Satya, Dukkha Nirodha Arya Satya, and Magga Arya Satya, Dukkha Nirodha Gavani Patipada Arya Satya, in other words. So every mundane experience is categorized under Dukkha Arya Satya in the Arya Satya approach. What is the reason for that? This Arya Satya classification is done in comparison of the mundane things with supermundane happiness. When we compare mundane experiences, or the experiences, or the worldly experiences that we can experience in our day-to-day life, every material factor and every mental factor, Nama and Rupa, all of these should be called as suffering, must be called as suffering when they are compared to the eternal bliss, eternal happiness, eternal cessation of suffering. So that is what Lord Buddha had done in the Arya Satya approach. Comparing to the Nibbana, everything that we experience in our day-to-day life, every worldly experience is called as suffering. So we have to understand these two categories of reality. Arya Satya approach is a different approach. Ultimate reality or Paramattha Satya approach is another different approach. So when Lord Buddha focuses on the Arya Satya approach, and when he discusses and teaches about Four Noble Truths, he will say all the worldly experiences are suffering. But when he discusses the ultimate truth, when he discusses about the Paramattha Satya, he of course accepts the worldly happiness as happiness, worldly joy as joy, worldly pleasure as pleasure. That is why we can find these terms here and there in the discourses, in the teachings of the Buddha. So what I want to say is that Buddhism is not a complete pessimism, not a pessimism at all. When it comes to Paramattha Satya or the Arya's ultimate truth teaching, Lord Buddha accepts the happiness in the worldly lives as happiness, and he sometimes encourages his followers to achieve that happiness, the worldly happiness, until they achieve the Nibbana, the ultimate happiness, or ultimate bliss. And when it comes to the Arya Satya Desana or the doctrine of Four Noble Truths, still it is not pessimistic, because Buddha introduces suffering and he does not stop there. He introduces the cessation of suffering. He introduces the eternal bliss, which is called as Nibbana. So even the Arya Satya Desana, the teaching or the doctrine of Four Noble Truths, is not a pessimistic teaching. So how can the Paramattha Satya Desana or the doctrine about ultimate truth be pessimistic? So the Lord Buddha of course encourages his followers to be happy. Once in one discourse he has clearly said that he does not encourage his followers to suffer in the path to the Nibbana. Until you achieve Nibbana, on that path, you do not have to suffer, you do not have to take the ways or the methods, you do not have to follow the methods that can suffer your mind and body, that can hurt your mind and body. But he encourages his followers to advance in the path to Nibbana with happiness and joy. So what we are going to do today is to focus on the well-being, focus on the paths or ways taught by the Lord Buddha towards the well-being, towards a flourishing life. So to do that, I chose a different approach. I will be focusing on a psychological approach, specifically positive psychological approach. I will be focusing on one aspect that is discussed in positive psychology. So this will be like an integration of positive psychology into Buddhism, or in other words, integration of Buddhism into positive psychology. I will not be giving a lecture about psychology, because my task is to explain Buddhism. So, but I will just what I will be doing is teaching some aspects in Buddhism by looking at those aspects through a psychological lens or a modern scientific lens. So when we talk about flourishing of human lives, a famous topic in positive psychology is the PERMA model. P-E-R-M-A, PERMA model. So PERMA model is told or discussed as the elements of 5 parts, 5 elements of human flourishing, 5 elements of well-being. So what are those 5 elements? By P, positive emotions are taken, and by E, P-E, engagement is taken. By R, relationships are taken, relationships which are positive are taken, and by M, meaning is taken, meaning in the sense of attitude and purpose of life. And by the last letter A of PERMA, accomplishment or achievement is taken. So this is PERMA model. So according to positive psychology, if someone is focusing and giving attention on these 5 elements, these 5 aspects, positive emotions, engagement, then relationships, meaning and achievement. If someone is continuously paying attention to these 5 aspects of life, then he should be called as flourishing. His life should be called as flourishing. He or she possesses a flourishing life, a life with well-being. So there are various techniques taught in positive psychology to develop these 5 aspects, so pay attention to these 5 aspects. But we are not going to focus on those techniques. We are going to take a look at Buddhist teachings, how Lord Buddha has taught about these 5 aspects without naming them as positive emotions, engagement, and relationships, meaning and achievement. Lord Buddha has taught us, guided us to cultivate these aspects, to pay attention to these aspects. So we are going to focus on that aspect today. So now you can understand what I am going to do. These 5 aspects are modern scientific elements which are discussed to be the parts of a flourishing life. So we are going to take a look at Buddhist teachings and understand and observe how our teacher, our master, the Buddha, has taught these things, has instructed us to cultivate these things. So let's focus on the first element, which is positive emotions. The main positive emotion that is discussed in modern world is happiness, in other words, joy. So if you have happiness, if you feel happy, if you are full of happiness, that means you are full of the main positive emotion that can appear within humans. So some modern scholars say that scholars have come to a conclusion that the sukha or happiness in Buddhism can be achieved by realizing the truth. The happiness or sukha that is taught in Buddhism can only be achieved by reaching to a state of equilibrium. That means the object that you experience and your consciousness, your emotions, your knowing about that that particular object should be same. So this is something incomplete. This is not a correct definition about the happiness in Buddhism. Maybe there are such teachings in other sects of Buddhism, but in Theravada, according to Theravada Buddhism, this is completely a wrong definition and giving a wrong impression about the Buddhist teachings. As I mentioned earlier, Lord Buddha accepts worldly happiness as happiness. We ourselves can experience happiness within ourselves. We experience joy and we want to experience that again and again. Right? That is why we are doing various things in our day-to-day life to achieve happiness, to experience that emotion. Because we, all of us, accept happiness as happiness. If Lord Buddha rejects it, then there is something to think about Buddhism, right? Because what we can practically see is if it is taught in Buddhism as something else, then Buddhism is something beyond our practical experience. Buddhism opposes our practical experience, but that is not the case. Buddha accepts the happiness as happiness, no matter it is worldly or it is super mundane. But as we learn the two approaches, there is the Paramatta Satya approach and Arya Satya approach. In Paramatta Satya approach, every existing Dhamma, everything that exists in the world is accepted in Buddhism. But when it comes to accepted as they are in Buddhism, but when it comes to Arya Satya approach, the Four Noble Truths, every mundane experience is considered as suffering comparing to the Nibbana, the super mundane experience. So, happiness is accepted as happiness in Buddhism. But then what is the difference between the, let's say, positive psychological approach to happiness and the Buddhist approach to happiness? In the other disciplines such as positive psychology, they want every kind of happiness as happiness. They encourage even wholesome and unwholesome, both types of happiness as happiness. If you feel happy, then it is encouraged to do. No matter singing or dancing or having fun with your friends or with your partner or taking intoxications. So every type of happiness, if that happiness does not hurt you and if it does not hurt others, then it is encouraged to do. But in Buddhism, the difference is that only the wholesome types of happiness are encouraged. The happiness that is connected to meritorious deeds or meritorious actions is encouraged, while the happiness connected to unwholesome deeds, the happiness that is that appear in your mind mixed with impure qualities, dirty qualities of your mind, is completely discouraged in Buddhism. So that is the true difference in Buddhism and such other disciplines. In Buddhism, the wholesome happiness is encouraged while unwholesome happiness is discouraged. But still, unwholesome happiness is also accepted as happiness. It is happiness, but it is not promoted in Buddhism. It is discouraged in Buddhism. And the Buddha has always advised us, admonished us to to reduce these this unwholesome, all unwholesome qualities with no exception to happiness. So that is the true difference. So let's see how this wholesome happiness is encouraged in Buddhism. In our last Dhamma talk, we learnt about loving kindness, right? Loving kindness. So another mental factor which is taught together with loving kindness is sympathetic joy. In Pali, mudita. In the four immeasurables, or we can call it four divine abidings. In Pali, Brahma Vihara, the four Brahma Viharas are Metta, Karuna, Mudita and Upekha. So when it comes to Mudita, we will skip Karuna, Metta and Karuna because I want to focus on Mudita first. Mudita itself is sympathetic joy. So you can see the word joy there, right? Mudita is having joy. But having joy towards what? Having joy sympathetically. That means having joy by seeing other people's happiness, other people's joy. When someone else is joyful, when someone else is happy, you can look at it and you also can be joyful or happy thinking about that other person's happiness. Not in an impure, dirty mind, but with a compassionate mind, a loving mind. You can rejoice what other person is feeling. You can rejoice the happiness of other person. So this is called as sympathetic joy or mudita. So mudita meditation practice, it is a meditation practice as well. In the fourth is samatha meditation techniques. This mudita meditation practice is also there. So the Lord Buddha has advised and guided us to do mudita as a meditation practice. In other words, He has guided us to cultivate joy. So joy is one of the main positive emotions that can be cultivated, and it is taught in Buddhism to be cultivated. We give less attention to such things because, meditation practices such as loving kindness, mindfulness and anapanasati, the concentration on your breath, these are the popular or famous meditation techniques. But there are other important meditation techniques as well as mudita meditation techniques, the meditation on sympathetic joy. So if someone can cultivate mudita, if someone can develop mudita meditation in a regular basis, then what will happen to him or her is that the mudita, the positive emotion called as mudita, will be developing in his mind. Day by day it will be developing, it will be improving, and as a result he will feel the flourishing of his life. His life will be flourishing because of that positive emotion. Because when we cultivate one positive emotion, together with that many other positive emotions tend to increase. That is the nature of positive emotions. If you cultivate loving kindness, many other positive emotions will follow loving kindness. If you cultivate compassion, many other positive emotions will be following compassion. That is the nature of the positive emotions as taught in Buddhism. So if you choose to cultivate sympathetic joy, by that meditation practice, many other positive emotions will be emerging in your mind, and you will feel much positive within yourself. Your life will become better and better because of that practice. So we can clearly see how the Buddha has guided us to have a positive life, have a flourishing life, have well-being in ourselves. Buddha did not always focus on suffering, but he also focused on the well-being in this very life. Buddhism does not always focuses on the well-being afterlife, in afterlife, or well-being which is called as eternal bliss, nibbana, but he also guided us to be happy and flourishing and have well-being in this very life. So that is about mudita, or sympathetic joy. Another place where Lord Buddha has promoted positive emotions is in the Bojjhanga, the parts or elements of enlightenment. In other words, elements of knowledge. Bojjhanga means Bodhi Anga. Bodhi means enlightenment or knowledge. Anga means part, element. So Bojjhanga, Bodhi Anga, Bojjhanga means parts of enlightenment, parts of knowledge. So there are 7 Bojjhangas. I am not going to explain them here. One of them is Piti Bojjhanga. Piti Sambojjhanga. Bojjhanga and Sambojjhanga have similar meaning. Piti Sambojjhanga. So Piti is joy, bliss, happiness in other words. So Lord Buddha has guided us to develop Piti or joy, and he also has mentioned Piti as one part of the enlightenment, one part that takes you to the enlightenment, one part that supports you to attain enlightenment. Piti Sambojjhanga. So if you read Visuddhimagga, you will see in many meditation practices such as Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, Sanghanusati, one benefit mentioned there is the development of Piti. If you practice Buddhanusati, if you contemplate on the qualities of Lord Buddha, if you do it in a regular basis, what will happen is that you will develop Piti, joy as well. And that Piti will lead you to development or success in your meditation practice. So Piti is another positive emotion that is advised to cultivate within ourselves. So another thing is that here also we have to make it clear. Piti, when it comes to Piti or joy, there can be a variety of joy, right? When we say joy, joy can be achieved by listening to music. Joy can be achieved by eating something delicious. Joy can be achieved by watching a movie, right? Joy can be achieved by dancing with your friend. But every type of joy is not encouraged in Buddhism. What Buddha encourages is to cultivate wholesome joy. Joy that is mixed with wholesome mental qualities. That is the difference of Buddhism, as I mentioned earlier. So joy is another positive emotion. Compassion, another positive emotion. It is also among the 4 noble abidings. We can develop compassion. And if we develop compassion, as I mentioned earlier, many other positive emotions will arise, emerge within ourselves. Equanimity is another positive emotion. Equanimity means being seen, seen or looking at everyone in an equal manner, without having any attachment and without worrying about the loved ones. So there is the meditation technique to practice equanimity, and it is advised to practice equanimity, or in Pali upekha meditation, after practicing metta, karuna and mudita. So upekha or equanimity is another positive emotion you can practice, and that will reduce your negative emotions and support your life to flourish. So those are the 4 noble abidings of Brahma Vihara. Apart from them, if you are a true believer of Lord Buddha, if you are a true follower of Lord Buddha, then devotion or saddha is another good positive emotion that you can cultivate. Devotion. You can cultivate devotion by various means. Buddhanusati meditation practice is a good way to cultivate saddha or devotion. And learning about Lord Buddha, learning about the qualities of the Buddha is another way. Learning Dhamma deeply is another way, because when you learn Dhamma deeply, you will have more and more devotion towards Lord Buddha, because he is the one who has taught all these noble teachings. He is the one who opened all these gates towards happiness and wholesomeness to the world. So if you learn Dhamma deeply, especially the deep teachings such as Abhidharma, you will have more and more faith and devotion towards Lord Buddha. And by developing that devotion, you will be developing many positive emotions that are alike. And they will lead you to a positive life, a flourishing life. So that is about positive emotions. We can talk about this one aspect about for hours, for days, but because of the time limit, we will move to the next element of PERMA model. That is engagement. What is engagement? As it is described in positive psychology, engagement is being fully engaged in the task you are doing. Do whatever you do with wholeheartedly, giving full attention to the task at hand. So that is engagement. Another topic which is broadly discussed under engagement is flow. Flow, F-L-O-W, flow. Flow means having full concentration on the task you are doing at the moment, without having thoughts about past, of planning about future, being in the present moment, being fully concentrated on the task you are doing. So that is called as flow. So this is engagement and flow described in PERMA model. So is this something strange to Buddhism? Is this something new to Buddhism? What comes to your mind when I talk about flow and engagement? Mindfulness. Mindfulness is broadly discussed in Buddhism. And actually the topic mindfulness is derived from Buddhism. So when we talk about mindfulness, mindfulness is thought to be the practice of being in the present moment, but it is not completely that practice. Mindfulness is a broad term when it comes to Theravada Buddhism. The discourse called as Satipatthana Sutta is where mindfulness is broadly taught by the Buddha. And the Satipatthana Sutta itself, there is this meditation technique called as Asubha Bhavana. So under the Kaya Anupassana section, there is this meditation technique where you have to focus on a dead body and see your body as same as that dead body. contemplate on the dead body first and then contemplate on your body. Your body will also become reach to this state one day. So that is the Asubha meditation technique, and it is also taught in Satipatthana Sutta, where mindfulness is discussed in Theravada Buddhism. So that is not contemplating or concentrating on present moment, right? But contemplating on, concentrating on present moment is also mindfulness. But mindfulness is not only that. That is what we have to understand. When you are developing Buddhanusati, still you are developing mindfulness. But you are not focusing on present moment, you are focusing on Buddha's qualities. If you are developing metta, loving kindness, still you are developing mindfulness, but your object is not present moment, but living beings. So mindfulness is not all about present moment, but focusing on present moment is one aspect of mindfulness. So let's focus on that. When if you can develop mindfulness as a follower of Buddhism, if you can develop the attention in present moment, you will be immensely flourishing. You will be immensely improving yourself, because the people who have cultivated mindfulness know, and they have the experience that when you develop mindfulness, many other positive emotions tend to develop in yourself. There is this teaching in Buddhism, teaching in a discourse, Dandho hi bhikkave satuppado, Dandho hi bhikkave satuppado. That means only the appearance of the mindfulness, appearance of the sati is slow, is difficult. We know that it is very difficult to condition the mindfulness to appear in ourselves because we are too busy with our day-to-day activities, and we are too busy with our attachments and all our busyness in our mind. So it is very difficult for the mindfulness to appear in our mind. Dandho hi bhikkave satuppado. So it is described in the commentary as Satya uppado yeva dandho. Only the appearance of the mindfulness is slow, but uppanna mattaya taya kechi kilesa niggahitava honti. That means just by the appearance of mindfulness, many defilements, many dirty emotions will be reduced just because of the appearance of mindfulness. So that is how mindfulness is praised in Buddhist texts. And there are hundreds of other discourses where Buddha has guided us and instructed us to develop mindfulness. So if you can be mindful with the task at your hand, let's say when you listen to this Dhamma talk, if you can do it wholeheartedly without thinking about other things, if you do the meditation, if you can focus on the meditation, when you eat, if you can focus on eating, when you talk with someone, if you can focus on the talking without worrying about other things, when you sleep, if you can focus on the sleeping, if you can focus on the present moment and live in the present moment, you will feel that serene state you will be developing and experiencing, and you will experience that many of your worries and anxiety and stress will be reducing day by day. So mindfulness practice is especially the Buddhist way to be engaged, and developing concentration There are various meditation practices that are especially taught in Buddhism to develop concentration. What is developing concentration? It is developing the engagement in one task, right? When you are practicing Buddhanusati, you are concentrating on the Buddha's qualities, and that is developing your capacity to engage in that task. You are developing your concentration, mean you are developing that capacity of you to engage in the task. So all the samatha meditation practices are designed to recommended for you to develop your concentration, and it is also a way in Buddhism to be engaged, to develop this aspect or element called as engagement. And another thing is that a way to develop engagement, a way to pay attention to the engagement is to understand your strengths, understand your character strengths. So this applies to Buddhism also. When we practice Buddhism, sometimes we want to do everything. Sometimes we want to do what other people do as followers of Buddhism. But that is not the way of the Buddha. If you are trying to succeed in a meditation practice, you have to choose the meditation practice that suits you. If your character suits loving kindness meditation practice, you will not succeed in let's say compassion meditation practice. If the compassion meditation practice is the one that suits you, you will not succeed in Buddhanusati. So if you have a good teacher who understands you very well, he will surely recommend you what to practice. But if you do not have such a teacher, then you have to understand your strengths, your tendencies, and then choose what suits for you. And then you will develop engagement in that practice. So this is about the second element, which is engagement. Let's focus on the third element. Relationships. Perma, P-E-R. Now we are in R. Relationships. So when it comes to relationships, sometimes one can have an opinion that Buddhism, when we talk about Buddhism, when we talk about being religious, sometimes it comes to our mind the image of someone who is sitting quietly without talking with anyone, without associating anyone. But that is not the Buddhism. Of course, when you meditate, of course when you are doing sitting meditation, then you have to be quiet somewhere, you have to sit alone. But when it comes to your day-to-day life, you don't always have to be alone, you don't always have to be quiet. The Buddha has instructed us to have positive relationships. It is encouraged to have positive relationships. Let's take the Mangala Sutta, which is a famous and popular sutta. Mangala Sutta, you know, the Bahudeva Manusacha, that sutta, we call it Mangala Sutta. So in the first verse of Buddha, what he instructs is asevanacha balanam panditanancha sevana, associating the wise. It is encouraged to associate the wise people, to have that means to have relationship with wise people. And then we go when we go to the next few verses of Mangala Sutta. Mata pitu upattanang puttadarasa sangaho. Having a good relationship with your parents by treating them well, taking care of them well, and having good relationship with your spouse and your children by treating them with loving kindness. Puttadara. So not only with your family, then in the next verse, Nyatakanancha Sangaho, treating your relatives, treating your neighbors with loving kindness and compassion. So all these teachings are the encouragements to have positive relationships that are positive. And in the discourse called as Mittanisansa Sutta, it can also be seen in the Jataka called as Temya Jataka. Lord Buddha has taught us many drawbacks or negative consequences of betraying our friends. We must not betray our friends. If someone betrays the friend, then he will have to face many negative consequences in this life and in afterlife. So a whole sutta is there, which is called as Mittanisansa Sutta. And in Dhammapada, when it comes to Dhammapada, there is a verse like this: Sache labheta nipakang sahayang saddhing charang sadhu vihari dhirang abhibhuya sabbani parissayani charayya tenatta mano satima. So that verse means Sache labheta nipakang sahayang. If you meet a wise friend, saddhing charang sadhu vihari dhirang, who spends time with you, who devote his time to spend with you, and who has good behavior, and who has the courage and effort to do good things with you. Abhibhuya sabbani parissayani, tolerating every obstacle that you have to face. Charayate natta mano satima, mindfully spend time with him. Take your time to spend time with that friend, and continue that relationship, because such positive relationships are immensely important for our growth. So that is how the Buddha instructed us to have positive relationships. So the Buddhism does not always encourage us loneliness. If you have good friends, if you have people that take care of you, who have true loving kindness, compassion towards you, then you have to maintain those relationships. In Vinaya, there is the teaching of Buddha which says that if there is a student to a teacher who does not continue his positive relationship with his teacher, Acharye adimattang pemang, that means an extreme love towards the teacher. If the student does not possess an extreme love towards the teacher, then the Lord Buddha allows the teacher to get rid of that student. So indirectly, he guides the students to have a very good positive relationship with their teachers. So what we can see is that the Buddha in many occasions has instructed us to maintain positive relationships, to take our time and to do some sacrifices. Abhibhuya sabbani parissayani, tolerating every obstacle, every hindrance, every difficulty that you have to face. Spend time with such good friends. So sometimes he has instructed us to do some sacrifices to maintain such positive relationships. So when in the process of maintaining positive relationships, one good way is to use loving kindness for that. As we learned in the last Dhamma talk, loving kindness is a good instrument to maintain our maintain our relationships and to make even our bad relationships good, to change our bad relationships into good relationships, to make our relationships positive. Because cultivating loving kindness means you are cultivating genuine feelings, genuine wishes towards the other person. So if you have those genuine emotions towards the other person, there is a huge possibility for the other person also to have such feelings towards you. There can be occasions where the other person does not change, no matter how loving you are, but the probability is there for the other person to change. So even the negative relationships can be changed into positive by practicing loving kindness. So that is about positive relationships, and we are moving to the next element, which is meaning. P-E-R-M. So when it comes to meaning, what is meaning? Meaning is having a purpose in your life, having good attitudes, knowing the value of yourself, knowing the value of your life, and knowing what you have to do in your life. It is also described as the feeling that you belong to something larger than yourself. So when it comes to meaning, the whole Buddhist philosophy is about meaning, right? Because let's first focus on it as a believer, true believer, in the eye of a true believer of Buddhism. The Buddha has taught us about the cycle of rebirth, and we are still in the cycle of rebirth, samsara. And without stopping there, the Lord Buddha has instructed us, he has taught us he has shown us that there is something called as Nibbana, the cessation of all the suffering and eternal bliss. And he has encouraged us to try to put effort to achieve that state, which is eternal bliss. And he has, in various discourses, taught us about the unsatisfactory nature of this journey of samsara and the realms in which we have to suffer a lot. We call them the apaya or hell. If you stay in samsara, you will be reborn in these bad realms again and again, and you will have to suffer a lot. Even if you will reborn in a realm like the human realm, still there are a lot of difficulties you have to face. And the upper realms, which are called as Devaloka and Brahmaloka, they are also not free from suffering. So comparing to the Nibbana, comparing to the eternal bliss, comparing to the cessation of suffering, everything worldly, every experience worldly, every mundane experience is suffering. So our task will be, the followers of Buddhism, the task of the followers of Buddhism should be to attain Nibbana as soon as possible. We cannot see Nibbana now. We don't have a clue about Nibbana. But as followers of the Buddha, as the believers of the Buddha, as the ones who are devoted to the Buddha, as the ones who believe that Buddha, believe in the Buddhahood and the compassion of the Buddha and the knowledge of the Buddha. We believe in the words of him, and we believe that it is true that we are in a circle of rebirth, and we are getting reborn again and again. This is just one life, and we will be reborn in another life after death, and another life after death. So this is an unending circle of rebirths. We will be reborn again and again, and this will not end. The suffering will not end until we achieve Nibbana. So what a wise person should do is to put effort to attain Nibbana. So in that sense, we all have a purpose to achieve in this life. That is to advance in the Dhamma path, to advance in the path towards Nibbana. That should be our main goal. There can be short time goals and lifetime goals, but as Buddhists, we have a goal that may be achieved beyond this life, in another life, in samsara, maybe after thousands of future lives. Our goal is such a goal. It can also be attained in this very life if you put real effort, and if you have a good teacher who can instruct you, and you also should have fulfilled the qualities or qualifications to attain that goal. So if you haven't fulfilled those qualifications yet, you may achieve it maybe in next life, or maybe after hundreds life or thousand lives, maybe in the next Buddha's dispensation, Buddha Sasana, or maybe after hundreds of future Buddha's appearance. So no matter when you achieve that, no matter when we achieve that, our goal is to achieve Nibbana. So we have a long-term goal. We all have a long-term goal. So the purpose or the meaning, the long-term meaning, long-term purpose as Buddhists, the long-term purpose of us is to proceed or to advance in the Dhamma path. No matter what we are doing our studies, maybe we are doing our businesses, or maybe we are taking care of our parents or our sons and daughters. No matter what we are doing in this life, we have a long-term goal. So in our day-to-day life, we have to sacrifice our time and energy towards that goal also. And when it comes to short-term goals, according to Buddhism, there is a Dhammapada verse saying that Yatha vipuppara simha kaira mala gune bahu evang jatena machena kattabbang kusalang bahu. Yatha vipuppara simha kaira mala gune bahu. That means a garland maker, a person who makes strings of flower. We call them mala in Pali. The strings of flower or garlands of flower. If he gets a lot of flowers, he will be very happy, because he can make many garlands. He can make many strings of flowers from those flowers. Likewise, evang jatena machena, like a garland maker, having a lot of flowers is a opportunity for a garland maker to make many garlands, many strings of flowers. The human life is an enormous opportunity for the beings to accumulate merits as much as possible. Evan jatena machena kattabbang kusalam bahu. So another meaning, another purpose of human life is to accumulate merits, good deeds as much as possible while we are alive in this human realm. So that is another, we can say, short term comparing to the samsara, long term comparing to when we focus on this life. But many other ways are there to describe about the meaning and the purpose of life. We can also describe it by in terms of loving kindness or compassion, and we can also describe it by the way of attaining nibbana that you have wished, that you have decided. For example, if your goal is to be Buddha, if your goal is to attain Buddhahood and help many other beings to get rid of this samsara, get rid of suffering, then your meaning and your purpose of life will be completely different. You will have to, not you will have to, but you will have compassion towards all the beings. You will have great compassion than others towards your loved ones and all the people you know, and you will sacrifice a lot of time to help them, support them. So the meaning and the purpose also depends on the journey you yourself are going. So that is another element of flourishing life, having meaning and purpose. The last element is achievement or accomplishment. So achievement, accomplishment, when you have something to achieve, when you have a goal to be achieved, that goal, that target will motivate you to take actions daily, and you will always be motivated towards achieving that target. So in Buddhism, as followers of Buddhists, we have such a target, we have such a goal, such a long-term goal. That is not something that we have to be doubtful about. The goal is set by our teacher, our master himself. That is the attaining of Nibbana. We all have that long-term goal. So we do not have to think twice. What we have to do is taking action, making efforts every day towards that goal. And when you do something that can make you advance or proceed in towards your goal, you will feel happy, you will feel good, you will feel content and satisfied. So this is how having something to be accomplished can contribute to your happiness, contribute to your well-being. Not only having something to be accomplished, but also accomplishments that you have made in your life. So here we have to talk about some other meditation techniques such as Sila Anusati, Chaga Anusati and Devata Anusati. So these three are also among the 40 samatha meditation techniques. Sila Anusati means contemplating on your virtue, your morality. After having sila for a certain time, look back at that accomplishment you have made, and then try to be happy, try to be content, try to be satisfied about your morality. That is Sila Anusati. Chaga Anusati is being happy, being not actually being happy, but the recollection or remembrance or mindfulness or concentration about the generosity of yourself. After giving something to someone, you can later think about that and be happy and rejoice your own deed. So that is Taganusati. Devatanusati is, we have heard about Devata, deities or nets or gods. So they have many good qualities within them, such as Saddha, devotion, Virya, effort, and also they were reborn in those lives by developing good qualities, by developing meritorious, by cultivating meritorious deeds while they were in the human lives. So they are devotion, and it can also be generosity, wisdom, many other wholesome qualities. So you can compare them with yourself, and you can think about your wisdom, and you can think about your knowledge that you have accumulated so far, your Dhamma knowledge you have accumulated so far. And at the night when you go to sleep, you can think about these good qualities in yourself, so and rejoice them. So that is Devata Anusati. So all these, in all these Anusati meditation techniques, what we do is we focus on our accomplishments, and we try to have a calm feeling and serene feeling, focusing on our own accomplishments. So this is one aspect to explain this accomplishment according to Buddhism. So how this accomplishment contribute to the flourishing? It is by giving you that feeling of satisfaction, feeling of contentment, because when you focus on good deeds you have done, maybe the deed can be a very tiny one, giving something to someone, maybe you're having sila for a few hours, not breaking sila for a few hours, or learning something new, listening to a Dhamma talk, or worshipping, paying homage to Lord Buddha, reciting some Dhamma verses, or reading a sutta, reading a discourse, or learning some Abhidhamma. Whatever you do, whatever meritorious deed you do, that every and each deed is an accomplishment, because by every and each meritorious deed you advance in the Dhamma path, you advance in the in your journey towards Nibbana. So every meritorious deed you do is an accomplishment, and you can be happy and content about those accomplishments. There are many other ways to describe about this accomplishment, because we have a step-by-step path that is paved by Buddha towards the Nibbana, right? We have Sila, and then Samadhi, then Panya, and we have the high levels of concentration which are called as Jhana. In Jhana also we have many levels like Patama Jhana, Dutiya Jhana, Tatiya Jhana, and we attain Nibbana also. There are many levels: Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and at the end Arahatta, being an Arahant. So all these are step-by-step accomplishments taught in Buddhism, but I did not focus on those things because we have to focus on something which is very practical and which can be experienced in our daily life. So this is about accomplishment. So these are the 5 elements of PERMA model that is discussed in positive psychology, and that are discussed in positive psychology, and that are told to be the elements of well-being, elements of a flourishing life. If you want to be a growing person, a successful person, it is not just being happy. Being happy is only one aspect of a flourishing life, but a successful life should contain all these 5 aspects. If you have all these 5 aspects, if you having these 5 aspects also does not mean you achieve these 5 aspects and they will be there in your whole life by achieving once. It's not something like that. You have to maintain them. You have to maintain them. So if you are continuously maintaining these 5 elements of flourishing, and if you are giving attention to these 5 elements of flourishing, you will be possessing a flourishing life. You will be possessing a life with well-being, and happiness will be there as a part of your life. So what we learn today is to is a way, or some methods to have these 5 elements in Burma according to the Buddhist way, according to the Buddhist teachings. So I hope you learned something today, and I hope you learned something practical today that can be applied to your life. And some people are there who like to look things always in a scientific way, right? So according to scientific theories and models. So this Burma model is a positive psychological model, and there are many techniques taught in positive psychology to develop these aspects in life. So what we did was integrate in our Buddhist teachings into these 5 elements, and learning them and discussing them deeply. So I invite you all to apply these things in your life. Try to apply these things in your life, and also you can brainstorm, and you can find some other ways according to your knowledge, how to develop these 5 aspects according to Buddhism. And there can also be other ways which are not taught in Buddhism, but as followers of Buddhism, as followers of the Dhamma path, it's good for us to develop these elements according to the Buddhist teaching. So I invite you all to do that. You can make a note, and you can brainstorm and make a note about things that you can do to develop these 5 elements: positive emotions and engagement, then relationships that are positive, and the 4th aspect is meaning, and the 5th aspect is accomplishment or achievement. Okay, thank you all for listening to the Dhamma talk till the end. Yeah, time for questions.
Thank you so very much, Venerable Padmadule Vijitanandabhivamsa, for this profound speech on Buddhist teachings for a flourishing life. I'm sure all our Dhamma friends around the world were benefited today. We will take up your questions now, and we encourage you to post your questions in simple language through the Dhamma USA and IIT YouTube channel. However, Bhantuji, I don't see any questions. So with that, we conclude today's Dhamma sharing, and look forward to meeting you with more insightful Dhamma sharings in the coming week. Let's keep our palms together, close to our hearts, and pay respect to Venerable Padmadule Vijitanandabhivamsa with 3 sadhus. May you always be well, happy, and healthy, dear Venerable. Sabbi Tiyo Vivajjantu, Sabba Rogo Vinasatu, Mate Bhavat Vantarayo, Sukhe Degayu Ko Bhavat. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.